One of my viewers on YouTube named Rodan Lesh has been sending me a few donations through Steam for games to review. He's the guy who sent me New Kind of Adventure, and he's been sending me some more indie games that I might not otherwise have known about. He's kind of taken it upon himself to be my scout, seeking out crappy small games so that I'm never lacking in material to review. So, to give thanks, I thought it was about time I did another special on indie Steam games, covering the donations that I have received, so let's dive back down into the rabbit hole that is the dark side of Steam. That'd make a good title for a video series. The first donation is a game called Robot X. It's a side-scrolling shooter where you play as a robot shooting stuff. To begin with, when you start the game, two giant round buttons appear in the corners of the screen, a dead giveaway that this is a mobile game that the dev decided to port to Steam. Because this was designed to be played on a tiny-ass phone, none of the buttons have text on them, so navigating menus is confusing. The game only uses two buttons, again, owing to the fact that it was designed for a cell phone. Z shoots, and X operates your jetpack. You constantly move forward on your own. The physics are kind of like that old arcade game, Jetpack. It takes a second to fly upwards at any decent speed, and when you release the button, it takes a second for your upward thrust to wear off and fall down. So there's about a 1 second delay to everything you do. These controls are not suited to a scrolling 2D shooter that requires twitch reflexes. You can't react to anything. You have to see obstacles on the side of the screen, process them, and start moving to get around it well in advance. The controls suck ass! Look at this right here. I have to go through this tiny gap with controls that take about a full second to react, and I only get one shot or I die. And all that's assuming that I even realize what obstacles are there, exactly what I have to do, and process and react to it in time. It's bullshit! It also sucks that the levels are full of shit that kills you by touch. I really hate these damn clouds. They're transparent so you don't even notice them ahead of you, and the environments have so many particle effects and other objects in the background, it's hard to tell what's an obstacle and what isn't. If you take 3 hits, you die. The levels have checkpoints along them, but respawning at a checkpoint doesn't give you your health back. You spawn with only 1 hit. Even if you decide to restart a level rather than use a checkpoint, the game often glitches, so starting the level over still doesn't give you your health back. What the hell? Hey! That log just dropped out of nowhere and killed me instantly! How was I supposed to react to that? Oh, bullshit! I was driving underneath that cloud, far underneath it so it wouldn't touch me, and the thing just spits out a lightning bolt like, no! Fuck you! You're constantly getting killed by shit you couldn't possibly know was a threat or avoid, or by hazards that just materialize out of nowhere. It's like the only way to get through this game is to play the levels over and over again until you memorize where all the death traps are, and it's pissing me off! You have several different characters to pick from, like a Cylon, Eva, that's obviously Iron Man and Optimus Prime, and I don't know who that guy is on the end, but I'm guessing he's the fat co-op robot from Portal 2. To the game's credit, you do have a wide variety of different weapons to use, even if I have no idea what any of these do because there's no text, but that's not enough to redeem the game when the controls are utter garbage and the levels were designed by an asshole! This game is trying to combine two styles of game that just don't belong together. Take the physics puzzle controls of a game like Jetpack and throw them into a 2D shooter. But the laggy controls don't mesh with the fast-paced shooter action, and the levels are too chaotic to mesh with the make every single move well ahead of time because one mistake and you die mechanics of the game. Bottom line, does this look like a phone to you? No! So don't put games designed for a cell phone on a PC gaming service, you dumb shits! The next donation from Mr. Rodan is Zombie Zoids, or however in the actual hell you pronounce that. Apparently this game was originally called Zombie Zoids, but the game was sold in a bundle at a reduced price, and the devs changed the name to wiggle out of having to hand out Steam keys for people who bought the bundle. Scummy assholes. I was looking forward to a horror game for October, but the title screen that barely text Photoshop does not give me confidence. This is an overhead shooter where you go around shooting zombies. You move with the WASD keys and shoot with the mouse. The weapon that you start the game with is this piddly-ass pea shooter that doesn't even fire when you click the mouse. You have to hold the mouse button, the gun fires maybe 1 bullet per second, and it just seems to mildly irritate the zombies. The game has no indicator telling you which gun is equipped, but I eventually figured out this gun has 3 firing modes, which you switch between by pressing 1, 2, and 3, and the second and third modes fire as a machine gun so that you can, you know, actually kill enemies? So why even have this worthless pop gun when you have another version of the same gun that doesn't suck ass? Why even have a gun that takes several seconds to down one enemy in a game where enemies always travel in swarms? If you're thinking this game looks like Hotline Miami, shut your damn mouth and stop insulting Hotline Miami. You can only shoot in the direction that you're moving. There's no way to strafe. To shoot anybody, you have to stop dead in your tracks and then move toward the enemy you're trying to shoot. There's no way to shoot someone and flee at the same time. Your gun doesn't fire through the center of your body either. You have to jitter around to actually get your gun lined up with the enemies, and the controls are stiff, so you'll inevitably take damage just trying to line up a shot. The only way to get around the enemies is to keep running until all the enemies are dead in a row, then butcher them with one line of fire. If the enemies would leave me the hell alone for a few seconds so I can turn around! Oh, and if too many enemies are on the screen at once, the frame rate gets buggered to PowerPoint levels. Because static images sliding along a solid color is too taxing for the game to render. The controls are so stiff you can barely maneuver. You're constantly taking hits from enemies dogpiling you while you desperately try to turn and line up a shot. I almost think you're better off just running away from the enemies and heading straight for the exit without firing a shot. Except you're still constantly taking hits from enemies that just happen to run into you from off-screen, so that doesn't help either. Health packs are rare and barely do anything if you do find them, so you're going to die. A lot. Die once and you get sent back to the main menu, by the way. Oh, come on! I don't think this game's developer understands how overhead views work. I can't walk under the tree's leaves. What in the actual... You walk a little bit upwards from your starting position and you can find the title screen on the map. Is this supposed to be funny? Or could he not figure out how to get an image for the title screen except for, like, positioning the camera over part of the map or just taking a screen cap of the game? Why would you do that? You're dumped into this level with no objectives and no backstory. After wandering around aimlessly, I eventually found out you're just supposed to head for the level exit, somewhere in the lower right corner of the map. That's the only thing you do in the game. There's nothing in the map to interact with because I found a few buildings that don't seem to do anything. I can't go inside them. The only other thing to do in the game is to rescue hostages, but the hostages have the same AI as the zombies. If you stand still, they just swarm around you, blocking you from being able to shoot the zombies, and if you move, they just end up in the middle of the zombies chasing you. Either the zombies kill them, or you shoot them trying to hit the zombies, because of course friendly fire is turned on, so you just can't keep civilians alive. Even if I do manage to keep a civilian alive, what the hell do I do with them? Okay, question answered. Take them to the giant pink circle that says evacuation zone in Times New Roman. You know, I might have drawn a helicopter landing pad with a military-like sign saying evacuation zone, not just put down a pink circle and call it a day. Zombiezoids is utter garbage. The controls are horrendous, the combat is broken, you die constantly, the levels are boring, there's nothing to hold your interest because the gameplay is so monotonous and frustrating, and the graphics look like a cheap-ass Flash game that you should be able to play for free on Newgrounds. It really looks like this was made by somebody who's never made a game before, and if that's the case, I have some advice for the developer. Steam is the big boys club, not the practicing ground for you to squeeze out your first game for practice. Go home, sit in the corner, and don't come back until you suck less. Next donation, Forsaken Uprising, like the most generic game title I've ever heard. This one comes courtesy of an old friend of ours. During my last batch of indie reviews, I covered a game called The Slaughtering Grounds. You remember, zombie shooting games with absolutely no objectives and no completed mechanics? And it wasn't Zombiezoids. That was made by the brothers team of James and Robert Ramino, better known as Digital Homicide. Now, their first game was a career-killing embarrassment, but let's see if they got any better. To begin with, this game is exclusively an online multiplayer title, and nobody is playing it online. The game lists itself as a survival game, but pro tip when it comes to Steam indie games, survival game is usually code for we didn't design a real game, so just wander around until you die and pretend that's the game. You start the game in a field with a club. You smash the club into piles of logs or rocks to get wood, stone, and iron ore. You use the wood to craft a campfire, you kill animals, and you collect their meat to cook it and recover health. But when I kill an animal, its hide and meat drop as a chest I assume the animal was storing in its ass. You can't just walk over the box and collect it, you have to open the box by pressing E. See, it says right here on the menu. But it doesn't work, so I press every damn button on my keyboard and nothing works! How do I open this damn chest? I've seen gameplay videos where this chest opened with no problem, so I asked Mr. Rodan if he was having this problem also. His response was, and I quote, "I got a refund for Forsaken Uprising. It glitched a lot and ran like shit." He is far smarter than I am. Anyway, the object of the game is to craft castle walls and farmland, build a castle, and then protect your property from the other players. I really think this game is trying to be a poor man's Minecraft, because collecting resources and building your own castle is the only thing you do in the game. The big problem is that it takes freaking ever to build anything. Everything in the crafting menu is hidden under ridiculously vague sub-menus, so it takes forever to find anything. I can't craft anything that requires leather, since I can't open the dead animal chests, and most of the crafting resources you have to collect by killing NPCs and looting their bodies, which I can't do because I have the same problem as the animals. Everything requires wooden boards and stone blocks to build, and you can only craft one board or one block at a time. I need to build a forge to smelt my ore into metal, but to build one forge, it takes 100 wooden planks and 75 stone blocks. So after spending however long whacking trees to get wood, I have to sit here in the crafting menu, clicking the craft button, and waiting for it to finish 100 times to craft all the boards I need. Craft, and craft, and craft, and craft. It's so boring. And this is all to build one object. Can you imagine how long it would take to build walls and then build enough walls to form a castle? This crafting is just hours of setup for a game that never happens. Even if I do build a castle, what do I do with it? Protect it from the 2 other people playing who I'll never even see because the game world is so big? What happens if they get inside my castle or if I find someone else's? You can't dismantle a castle. There's no ownership of a castle. The castle doesn't do anything for you, it just sits there! This entire game is built around fighting over a piece of scenery that doesn't do jack squat in the first place! And all that's moot because the game is so broken and inconceivably boring that you'll never even build a castle. This entire game is just walking around, doing nothing, looking for shit to pick up so you can build things that also do nothing! You'll never get close to a castle before you realize you could do anything else with your life and turn off this useless piece of shit! Let's do the good old digital homicide glitch roundup. Often your health glitches and becomes infinite, so good luck trying to fight a human player that's bugging out. Most of the enemies, there's no sound or feedback when you attack them, so you just keep swinging your weapon with no clue if the damn thing is working. Items will randomly float off the ground. In fact, most items randomly float off the ground. The one time I ran into another human, his body's texture alternated between made of stone and skinned horror show. The game frequently crashes when I try and get into the one USA server. Items don't stack when you craft them, so you have to constantly go in and manually group all your shit together while crafting. If you want to craft decent amounts of anything, you're told that iron ore can be forged into metal in a furnace, which they renamed The Forge and forgot to change the text. But even when I found a forge someone else had made, lo and behold, pressing E wouldn't interact with it like it's supposed to. Even when, by sheer luck, the game decided to work and I was able to interact with the forge, there doesn't seem to be any way to actually use it. I drop my shit into these inventory slots that appear for the forge, and nothing happens! How the hell do I use this damn thing? I eventually figured out that pressing E does, in fact, pick up items when the hell it feels like it. I just have to mash the button at least 20 times, and even then it still usually doesn't pick up the damn item, and half the time when I go to harvest wood or a rock, the game just fails to register. I'm hitting the damn thing, and nothing happens! I can't harvest any materials. In this game, where the entirety of the gameplay revolves around mining and picking up resources, the game keeps glitching so you can't pick up anything! Every single gameplay mechanic is glitched so badly that the game barely frickin' works. It would suck even if it did work because you don't do anything! Forsaken Uprising is a broken down abomination. I'm glad there aren't any online players. It means nobody else is suffering through this horse shit! This thing is so buggy that it's frequently unplayable. James and Robert Remino, please, for the love of God, stop making video games! God damn, nobody let me play digital homicide games ever again. The next donation is called Devil Share, made by ECC Games. Good. This game has the weirdest glitch I've ever seen. If you launch the game in full screen instead of as a window, the graphics don't load up correctly. Look at this. almost all of the textures are just pitch black. I can't see anything in the environment to actually play. My screen is just utter blackness. It's like, how much more black could this be? And the answer is none. I don't even know what that's a reference to, I just know both Spoony and the AVGN have said it, so it must be a thing. Anyway, you start in an abandoned gas station, you wander around until you find a gun, a flashlight, and some keys. Then you wander into town where a bunch of devil-looking guys are just standing around looking bored. Wow, the enemies don't even have walking animations. Their stiff, completely upright bodies just float toward you like they're coasting on roller skates. Despite only having melee attacks, they can hit you from clear across the room, and most of the time they don't even have an attack animation either. They just get near you and you automatically bleed health. Maybe their stench is so awful it inflicts physical pain being near them. So I die, and when I respawn, the enemies are all alive again, but my ammo doesn't come back! So fresh out of bullets, and my melee attack is useless because enemies kill you by their mere presence, I can't get past the enemies and get any further. Well, shit. So after restarting to get my ammo back, dying again, and repeating that cycle 5 more times, I finally get to a house to look for supplies like the objective says. I just need to find some ammo so I can actually play the frickin' game. Empty. 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 Empty, 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 empty. What the hell?! Oh, come on, I closed that door to keep out the enemies while I look for supplies, and the enemies just glitched through the door! Guys, you're making your horror game wrong! There isn't even a door-opening animation. The door just snaps to its other position. Trying desperately to figure out what the hell I was supposed to do, I explore the environment on the game's silly mode, where the guns have infinite ammo and fire chickens and shit. The game still sucks dong, but at least it's playable in this mode, and I found out that only one of these buildings has handgun ammo. The others are completely empty traps only there to waste your time. But I find some ammo, and finally I can actually fight enemies and play the damn game. Every single mission objective is a fetch quest. Find the next gun, find some ammo, find a set of keys. Seriously, you have to track down more than half a dozen sets of keys in this game. Was there any thought or originality? Once you figure out where the damn ammo is, the game becomes pitifully easy, because ammo respawns when you die also. You'll get killed constantly because the combat is horrendously broken and there's no health pickups, but you have infinite lives and objectives remain marked as complete when you respawn. You just walk straight to your next objective, get killed, respawn, and head for the next objective. The game is more a battle of attrition than any test of relevant skill. There's no story, the game is short as crap. I'd say every mechanic was tailor-made to piss you off, but that would imply some actual effort went into this shit. And the game isn't scary at all because dying is just a minor annoyance. There's no atmosphere, just an abandoned town where all the enemies stand out in the open, like plain sight, like you're a celebrity and they're all out to greet you. This is an untalented hack's idea of a horror game. Get a dark environment and throw ugly people into it. I don't know much about horror games, but I do know this is a shitty and a lazy one. Let's cut the crap. ECC Games is a Polish developer of mobile games, and they had nothing to do with the development of Devil's Share. The ECC Games that made this game is a shell account that's run by Digital Homicide. They've made so many horrible games and run their reputation so far into the ground that the only way they can peddle their shit is to use a fake account so nobody knows that it's them. That's more horrifying than anything in this goose poop of a game. Digital Homicide is still out there, hiding in plain sight, trying to sell you one of the worst games you've ever played, and you won't know they've struck until it's too late. And now all who play indie games to give small developers a fair shake must live in fear of when Digital Homicide will next strike. They could be anywhere. They could be anywhere. One last donation from Mr. Rodan. Caster, please don't be Digital Homicide, please. I don't think I can take 3 of their games in a row. Well, Caster is actually really good. The game is kind of a third-person shooter crossed with a mascot platformer. Basically, you play as a wizard that has to help clear out an alien infestation from his homeworld. You get a variety of different weapons throughout the game, and you have the power to run super fast and jump really high, which makes for a really unique and fun mechanic for a shooter game. The controls are fluent and easy to use, there's a great variety of enemies, all of which seem to have wildly different attacks. You can upgrade your character's weapons and powers as you see fit, there's plenty of levels. It's a really fun game. See, this is what happens when you know, put in effort. So yeah, Caster, I highly recommend it. Thanks, Rodan. I'll forgive the fact you sent me 2 of the worst games I've ever played in my life now. Man, it feels weird ending this video on a positive note, so let's take a brief look at one more game. Don't worry, this won't take long. This is Silicone 2, described on the Steam storefront as a shooter with a first person. You know, silicone is what goes into breast implants. Silicon is what goes into circuit boards if you're looking at killer robots. The game crashes when you try to load up the first level. Without fail. I've tried a dozen times, it hasn't loaded up once. The game is literally unplayable. It doesn't freaking work. $3 for something that doesn't even load up correctly. I've heard there's a cheat code that unlocks all of the game's levels, and people have said that over half the game's levels also crash when you try to run them. And doesn't the fact that there's a cheat code to unlock all the levels strike you as being convenient? Like the developer said, screw it, just try all the levels, I'm sure one of them works. How this digital waste product has not been forcibly taken down from Steam is a total mystery to me. Valve does not have any oversight of its platform whatsoever! All I can say is, thank God for Steam refunds. Can have this broken shit back! Okay, I feel cleansed now. This feels right.